Hi everyone, welcome to the Sunday Dharma program. Today the opening talk will be given by PZC resident and our kitchen master and garden master, Josh Senften. Josh was born in Sarasota, Florida and grew up along the Gulf Coast. He graduated from the University of Central Florida in 2014 with a bachelor's degree in music education. In 2016, he began practicing with the Orlando Zen Center. He took 5 precepts in 2018 and the 10 precepts in 2025 to become a Dharma teacher in training. Josh has worked as a professional musician for over 12 years, performing throughout Central Florida, the US, and the Caribbean. He currently tours with Cowboy Bebop Live, playing saxophone and clarinet, and also performs at gigs and weddings across New England. You can also find his album on Spotify. And answering questions is our own Diego Villasenor. Diego started practicing with Quantum School of Zen in 2011 at the Orlando Zen Center. He lived at the Orlando Zen Center for 5 years, where he became a Dharma teacher. In 2022, he moved to Providence Zen Center and became a senior Dharma teacher. He now lives in Providence and works as a data analyst. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. First, I just want to say I am very, very happy to share the speaking podium, I guess you'd call it, with my dear friend Diego. When I first showed up at the Orlando Zen Center in 2016, the very first person I saw on the random Thursday night I showed up was Diego. And we've been friends for over 9 years, so it's really wonderful to give a talk with him. So yeah, I grew up mostly with my grandparents, my grandpa in particular, and I'm only starting to realize how much of a gift that sort of was. When I was born, my grandpa was 60, and my mom was 16, and she would continue to struggle raising me. And like, if I've seen some TikTok videos of like granddads helping raise the kid, and it was just like that. Like, he taught me everything. We spent so much time together, and he had all of that time to sort of give me because he was retired. So my grandpa was born in Depression era 30s, early, like 1931. He was a gardener at like the age of 8. By the time he was 14, he had dropped out of school, and I think he had 3 jobs. This is a very common story for people back then. But by the time my grandpa had gotten to me, he had been a farmer, he had built houses, he'd served in the army, he drove truck, he had a window washing business, and he had built the second largest school bus distributorship in Ohio, like kind of a very, very jack of all trades. And I was very blessed to have that as a child. We always had a wood shop, and as a very young boy, I was learning to use bandsaws and cut little toys and tools and make things. I found a radio in the corner of the garage, and I took it apart. And I never got it working again, but my grandpa, I was maybe, I don't remember, 10, 9. My grandpa bought me a kit for young teens that was a build-your-own radio kit. And we worked on it together, and I got it working. It was very ugly, but it worked. It was wonderful. So I just sort of developed this like thirst for learning and knowledge. Like, when I saw something and I didn't understand how it worked, it would bother me until I figured it out. Like, and this sort of thing's carried my whole life. Really love learning new things. But sometimes knowing things is kind of not knowing, or not having the whole picture. When we're young, like especially in our teenage years, We learn those first few concepts we get a grip on, and somehow the world becomes very black and white, right? So I learned that this causes this, and that's how it is. We learn about supply and demand, and we think we understand economics, right? It's like, it's why we describe 13 and 14-year-olds as know-it-alls sometimes, right? Because we get some knowledge and we really feel like, oh, I understand, I see. There's a neuroscientist, I wish I could remember his name, but he studies why we maybe perceive older people as wise and what happens with that. Because they tell us that our peak cognitive ability is when we're younger, late teens, early 20s, right? That's when our mental learning capacity is at its peak. But as we get older, this scientist studied that certain things aren't gripping the knowledge maybe as well as it once did. And certain things fade, but our ability to recognize patterns and to see how this relates to this and fits in here becomes much more broad. And it explains some of the ways we see wisdom in old age, or we describe it as we learn more and more. So I've been thinking a lot about that, and there's a wonderful story of a Zen master named Basho, but before he's a Zen master, so at this time he's a student. And he's meditating in his hut, and his teacher, Zen master Nangaku, I believe, comes and visits him. And he asks Basho, so what have you been doing lately? And Basho says, I only sit in meditation. And his teacher asks him, why do you only sit in meditation? And he says, I sit in meditation so I can become a Buddha. And his teacher says, And he reaches down and he picks up a tile off the floor. And he starts to rub the tile with his palm. And after a few minutes, Basho asks, Master, what are you doing? He's like, I'm polishing the tile. I'm going to make a mirror. If you know anything about tiles, you don't make a mirror out of a tile. So Basho doesn't understand at first. And then his master looks at him and says, just like I won't make a mirror out of this tile, you won't make a Buddha by sitting. We get some knowledge, and sometimes we really hold it. And maybe we don't have the whole picture of how things are actually going on. In our practice and in Buddhism, we teach that you already have it. It's already in there. We just put on top all these layers of conditioning and mental habits, mental formations, ideas that we hold, and we lose sight of the beauty that's already in there. So that was Nangaku's really wonderful teaching to Basho. So in our school, we talk about this concept as don't know. This idea that there's a lot of knowledge to grasp, to try to understand. But the picture is never really black and white. And the more we cling or hold our ideas, the more we cause ourselves suffering, the more we might cause other people suffering, the more we strain our relationships, the more we don't meet each other. I think it was Zen Master Song San, our founding teacher, but I think someone asked him once, what's the biggest problem for people? What's the biggest source of their ignorance? And he said, I want. I want. So in our school, we have many, in Buddhism in general, there's many lists, many numbers, 4 noble truths, an 8-fold path. When you decide that this path is something that connects with you, that means something to you, and you want to pursue it for a life practice, we encourage taking precepts. First, there are 5 precepts, right? The precepts are, I vow to abstain from taking life, from taking things not given, from things done in misconduct done in lust, from lying, and from taking intoxicants to induce heedlessness. So we have all these lists and all these ideas, but one of the wonderful things about Zen is typically if you understand the point, then it's all clear. There are 5 precepts, then there are 5 more. The first 5 tend to do with your body, how you treat your conduct. The next 5 are widening. I vow to abstain from talking about the faults of others. I vow to abstain from putting others down and lifting myself up. Big, big vows. They start to branch out, right? These vows aren't about really being strict with our lives, really checking every moment. These vows are about a direction, about pointing us in the way of having that Buddha nature present itself naturally. So we call this the Bodhisattva path. And in Zen, there's a really wonderful thing, or I guess maybe it's a teaching technique, but it's a phrase that I've really tried to incorporate into a lot of my life, especially when something is a question. Man, what do I do with this? Do I want to pursue this job? Do I have the time and energy to meet with this person and this person? Can I go to dinner today and still get my job done and take the Zen master to lunch tomorrow? Is it there? We ask this question, for whom? There's a great question, why do you eat every day? That points to this in our school. Why do you eat every day? It's interesting, right? But it's kind of, it points to the depth of this question. Only for me, for a good feeling, because it's tasty, because I really want pizza Marvin. It's very good. Or is it for all beings, so I can sustain myself and be present for the next moment and the next moment? So if I can leave you with one thing, that's what I'd leave you with. Whenever things aren't clear, or whenever you hit a moment of like, man, I don't know if I have the knowledge to understand this, and I don't know what to do, maybe injecting that question in there can provide some clarity, and it has for me lately. For whom? Why am I doing this? Is it just for me? Is it just because I have an idea that this is the way it's going to work? So there's a Zen master, very famous Zen master in California, who has a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, Suzuki Roshi. And just the title is enough, right? So can you bring this beginner's mind? Can you ask for whom? And can your practice meet your life in that way? If it can, like it does all the time, you've already become Buddha. So thank you for becoming Buddha.
So, thank you, Josh, for that wonderful talk. And Josh really brought up the core elements of our practice there. One is the nature of how and why we suffer, the way that our minds will cling to things and then turn what we cling into a weapon against both ourselves and others, and gets in the way of our big second thing, which is we all have something that is before all that mental activity, before all that thinking, that don't know mind, that floor is brown. And then the very important next step, which he brought up, the bodhisattva path. Well, the floor is brown, now what? What do I do and function with in this moment? Well, I'm talking to all of you right now. There's just one small thing that kind of came up for me from Josh's great talk, which I wanted to share as well. The other day, in the midst of some great emotional and physical fatigue, I was talking to a friend about how much I wish I had something kind of like nourish me, and kind of make me feel a little bit more energetic. The way that some people will turn to the Bible or will turn to a piece of poetry or something that really just kind of nourishes them. And I was brought back to a very, very old, very short Zen text. It's called the Xin Xin Ming. It's translated to Verses on Faith Mind, and it's very short. It's a small little booklet, maybe no more than 10 pages, written by the third patriarch of Chinese Zen, called Zen Master Sun San. Not our Sun San, different Sun San. And the very first section of this Verses in Faith Mind goes, the great way is not difficult, just, and depending on the translation this changes, but just do not make good or bad. And then it goes on to say, to put what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. And once upon a time, I heard that, and I thought, wow, that's so clear. That's really right to the point of the heart of our practice. And very interestingly, this time I read it, and I went, wow, that's really hard to do. That feels extraordinarily difficult. And when you look at our practice and our clarity, it can sometimes feel extraordinarily difficult. The way that we cling to things and how hard it is for us to really let go of some very deep-rooted karma. How hard the bodhisattva path can feel sometimes. It's set up that way. The bodhisattva vows, we say that sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all. Delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. The teachings are infinite. We vow to learn them all. And this Buddha way is inconceivable, but we vow to attain it. We're setting ourselves up for this impossible task. And I think there's something very important about the way that that's brought up and the way that that's acknowledged. Our practice is to recognize our suffering, find that don't know mind, and then function. But I think one of the most important and beautiful things about our school and about this practice of Zen is that struggle as part of it is also 100% the practice as well. And it is just as beautiful and as human as everything else. Even Kwanseum Boso, in the stories, at one point, after kalpas, so very long periods of time, kalpas and kalpas and kalpas of just trying to help all sentient beings, looked around and saw that there were just as many, if not more, beings suffering than when they started. And according to the story, in the despair, her head blew up into 1,000 pieces. And now that's not the end of the story. All those 1,000 pieces were brought back, made into her arms, so that she can go and help more people. So Josh so well brought up our suffering, our don't know mind, and our bodhisattva path. And all of our struggle and all the things we suffer with as we give ourselves whiplash going, why am I hanging on to this? Let go, hang on, let go. That's it as well. There's no such thing as good or bad meditation. There's just, can you show up for the moment, whatever it is, even if it's a moment where your mind is completely in chaos, and without pushing it away, without clinging on to it, see it for what it is. And doing that over and over and over helps that fist kind of clenching up a little bit. So thank you, Josh, for pointing at something so wonderfully important in our practice. With that being said, does anybody have any questions about their practice, about their life, about data analytics? But I don't think you're here for that.
Happy Sunday. And
Happy Sunday.
Thank you both. So something really peculiar happened that I'm curious about during this. So I'm sitting, right, and I'm doing the don't know mind, which sometimes I feel silence can be deafening, right? So I'm don't know mind, and all of a sudden I get that urge, and I'm like, oh no, crap, don't cough, and I started coughing. But it was at the moment that I started coughing that I had incredible clarity and silence, but a different silence. So I guess I'm just kind of curious about that whole going from the don't know mind where we're taught to quiet our mind, but yet sometimes that's when it's the most noisiest, to when you have a moment like the don't cough, and I start coughing. But then there's that moment of clarity. And did the cough have the same ripple effect to anybody else in the room? Because everyone was being quiet and trying to do their own little mantra. I'm not sure. So, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for your question. I didn't hear your cough, and so I can't say how it may have affected me. Just to kind of say a few words maybe about your curiosity. Interestingly, there's another verse in the Xing Xing Ming, and I don't want to overly quote this text, but it's one that I found very useful from my experience. And in another paragraph it goes, in meditation, the very effort of trying to be quiet fills you with activity. And I think we can all relate or understand that to some degree, where we're going here going, oh, don't cough, don't cough, don't cough, don't cough, and we're putting so much energy in trying to control or focus on something that suddenly we're no longer really in the moment as much. We're just filling ourselves up with this activity that we're again kind of fighting and pulling against. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's helpful for us to make a very concentrated effort to not do something or to do something. How I like to approach it is with curiosity. What happens if I don't cough right now? Mind is going a little bit crazy. Mind is really getting quite active and really pushing against something. Interesting. And then the experience of, relief. How interesting. So that's the essence, I think, of the curiosity in the practice. Not in this exact moment is my mind perfectly quiet, but can I see how my mind is right here, right now, at the end of the day? And sometimes that mind is very quiet, and sometimes it's not. And just keeping that curiosity, that openness, as we always bring ourselves back over and over and over, lets that door widen just a little bit more in my experience. It's a lifetime practice. And so I'm glad you got to experience something today that invited some curiosity for you, that you saw your mind, saw how it built some tension and some activity, how it quieted down a little, and then you'll see that would play out 1 billion times more in your life. It'll become a little bit more familiar too. Does that sort of answer your question or address kind of your curiosity at all?
It's a good start.
Okay, well good. The rest is up to you then. Other questions?
Josh, good speech. Diego, I love to hear you talk. When I started reading about Buddhism a long time ago, suffering always turned me off. I'd start a book, close it, and put it down. And I think as human beings, we hear the word suffering and we think it's an enemy. But to understand the suffering as sometimes unease or difficulty is such an important thing. Can you talk more on making friends with suffering so we can fulfill a true nature, a Buddha nature?
So, suffering. Where do we even begin with that sort of thing? The very first noble truth is that life is suffering. That is our experience as a human being. That to come into this world, we are going to be hurt, and we are going to hurt others. And it's very interesting that that is the starting point for the Four Noble Truths at the end of the day. And I think that's not a mistake. I think that's by some design in the Buddhist teaching. Because when I look around today at myself and how I tend to function, and how the world tends to function, is I think we're a very fundamentally optimistic species. And what I mean by that is I think we tend to focus on the things that make us happy and the things that make us feel pleasure and the things that make us feel good, while at the same time trying to push away the fact that we hurt and maybe that we hurt others as part of it as well. And when we try and push that thing away, and when we try and ignore it, when we try and distract ourselves from it, and we're very, very good at distracting ourselves from it. You know, we've spent billions and billions of dollars on technology to do that very thing. Just look at TikTok or Facebook or YouTube. Some of the greatest forms of distraction from suffering that has been invented ever since alcohol. When we don't acknowledge that as part of our human existence, we're not able to use it or understand it in a way that's clear and in a way that can help it grow into some wisdom. And so I think in our practice, one of the first most important things to acknowledge is that the suffering is real. And the suffering is very profound and the suffering is very deep. In one of our chants, it comes up often, there's this phrase, Deja Debi, and it translates to great love and great suffering. And for me, it's always been this idea that these two are rather inescapable and inseparable from each other. This idea that the more we really open our heart and our minds to what is this moment, who am I? And then we go, I'm not the only person here. I exist. All of these things are also here. And then at that point, there's no my suffering and their suffering. There's just the suffering of the moment. The suffering of everything we come across and everything we see. And we're invited to reflect on this is our condition at the end of the day. And at first that can be very deeply overwhelming, I think. But I think it's very important for it to be overwhelming. I think it's very important that one of the first things we really come across, and if not the first, it is something we will come across, is, as Dennis would often say, is that this world will break your heart. And that your heart will break over it. And from that heartbreak comes that great love, comes that great compassion, comes that energy and clarity that gives rise to the Bodhisattva path. I'm speaking in kind of broad generalities, but when I look at myself in my life, and I look at the overwhelming amount of suffering in the world, and I don't know if at the end of the day, we as a species cause more suffering than we alleviate, and I don't know what to do about that. I know that's what gives rise to that energy for practice of, who am I? What is this? And just like Kwanzaa Bosol, to try for kind of 10,000, 50,000, 100 billion years, and just keep going, because the alternative is just more of the same. And when you really kind of open yourself up to that, that more of the same is just not something you can do anymore, in my experience. Does that address at all what you were getting at?
It does, and I think my practice has evolved from understanding that suffering is there,
Yeah,
right? And then we can address it and help others.
Yeah.
As you said,
and there's just one more thing that I want to add, and I think this is very important. There can be a tendency sometimes in our practice, in the way we hear teaching words, to kind of spiritually bypass suffering sometimes. Oh, you know, I'm encountering this great suffering now, where everything is in a state of change, so no problem. Or I'm suffering so much right now. Yes, just suffer 100%. There can be this tendency that sometimes we want to look at the suffering, and then without actually experiencing it or really acknowledging that the presence of the suffering is there, to try and go, oh, everything's changing, so no problem, don't worry about it. Or, oh yes, suffering, just suffering, no problem. When really it's very simple, like most things. What is this moment? There is suffering. Full stop. End of sentence. You don't need to add anything more to try and explain it away, to try and make you feel better about it. Just, suffering. And then, seeing that correct situation, the correct relationship and function will follow from it. So, we don't need to run away or hide from our suffering. When we really, truly, honestly look and acknowledge the suffering, and seeing it's not just ours, it's all of the suffering, then we can do something.
Thank you both. Really excellent. I'm glad I'm here this morning. Diego, there are a lot of new people here today, and and one of the things I think that might not be understood is, what is the Bodhisattva way, or why is it called Bodhisattva, or who in the world was Bodhisattva?
Yeah.
And the other one is, oh, so I already forgot. See, it's tough. It's tough getting old. What can I tell you? Kwanzaa Bosa. Same question. Thank you.
Yeah, so there'll be two parts to this then. One is sort of your kind of knowledge-based fact, which you can just kind of store in the back of your head. And the other is our practice component to it. So for the knowledge component, a bodhisattva in the, I don't know if Buddhist mythos is the right word to use, but in the stories, a bodhisattva is a being who has put off their own enlightenment, their own escape from this cycle of suffering, until all other beings attain enlightenment as well. And the kind of pinnacle, I wouldn't say the pinnacle, but one of the most popular and well-known bodhisattvas, a figure who's putting off their own enlightenment until all other beings can be helped, is in Korean Kwanzaa Bosa, the bodhisattva of compassion, who with their 1,000 arms and 1,000 hands is constantly trying to help all suffering beings in this world. And we do some Kwanzaa Bosa chanting at night, where we open ourselves up to that compassion. So that's kind of the knowledge base. In terms of the practice, the Bodhisattva path is exactly what Josh brought up at the end of his talk. Why do I eat every day? Who is this for? This life that I'm living? This body? This energy I get from my food? What am I doing this all for? Is it so I can go home and selfishly play board games and drink alcohol? You can give that a try, see how well it works for you. Let me know. Or, as we might say, it's for you. And not you, Carol, but you also get involved, Carol. But the big you. For what's appearing in this moment? It's for you. Because we're all here, no separation, what do we do? So, for those people who are new, you have a little bit of factual knowledge, but really the Bodhisattva path and the practice that we do here in our style of Zen Buddhism is to wake up, help other beings. Very simple, not easy. Does that get it, Carol?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Eva?
So along the same lines, Josh mentioned precepts,
Yeah.
which are, when you first read them, you think like, oh, these are some kind of rules, like kind of like commandments. But then there's more teaching around the precepts being more of a direction. So can you explain the difference between commandments and precepts?
Yeah, very much so. So in our style, there are some people who, if they want to kind of further reinforce their commitment to the practice, and here, for our particular style of teaching and practice, who may take on what's called the precepts. And you can take 5 precepts, and you can take more precepts, and they're essentially certain vows and certain directions that we set for ourselves. And the precepts exist because we acknowledge that being a human difficult is hard sometimes. It can feel confusing, and it can feel like it's not clear to us what direction we should take or how we should act. And so to kind of help with that, we're given these tools called precepts to give you that moment of when you feel confused and conflicted and at a loss, what should I do to not maybe hurt others? And at first the precepts are very simple. Don't kill people, don't steal, don't, give way overly to anger, don't commit sexual misconduct, so forth and so forth. And they continue on to the 10 and the 15 and so forth. And so they form a very good guide for us when we do feel confused and uncentered and conflicted, for us to have something tried and true to rely upon to kind of set us in the right direction. And 99% of the time, those precepts probably apply on how to live in this world harmoniously. But here is where they separate from commandments, is that they are not true all the time. Because nothing is. We live in a world of change, in a world of circumstance. And so the very famous story that they will share at the precept ceremony is the story of the hunter and the rabbit, where you are standing at a crossroads and you see a rabbit run by, and then a hunter comes and says, "Oh, where is the rabbit?" as he holds his gun. When I first heard this, I imagined Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny, but please don't feel free to do the same. And so you're faced with a situation. If you tell the truth, are you contributing to the death of this rabbit, thus breaking the precept of not killing? But if you lie, are you encouraging maybe some bad mental patterns in yourself? So what do? And in another version of this story, you know the hunter, and you know this hunter and his family are starving, and without food, his children very well might pass away. So at that point, what do? And so that's the beauty of it as opposed to a commandment. It's something to give us, to really have a good guidepost for us, but at the end of the day, wants us to trust our own wisdom and compassion where it applies, to let that function, even if in that moment it might be breaking a precept. But be careful, because as humans, we are very, very good at self-justifying stuff. We're very, very smart. There's a lot of very, very smart people out there who can invent any number of arguments to justify anything. So be very careful when you start thinking about, oh, I'm justified in breaking the precepts right now. You'll know, without needing to double check, it'll be very, very clear, this is the right thing to do. So be careful. Don't start self-justifying how killing someone will alleviate more suffering. There's a whole book about this called Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It's really good. Be careful. Does that get at it, Eve? Okay. Shami, last question.
Good morning.
Good
Thank
morning.
you both for your talks. Lately, I've been experiencing this sort of anxiety with decision making, and it's like yesterday I went on a hike with a friend, and you kind of touched on this in the previous answer, but we were in the forest and we got to a crossroads and I had to pick a way to go. And so I looked both ways and chose the left side. And as we walked down this path, I kept asking myself, did I make the right decision? Is this correct? I don't, just questioning myself. And I realized that that's my center not being strong. So how do I get back to strengthening my center and just having that faith in myself,
Yeah.
Because I find that it's happening not just with this hike, but more things in life.
Yeah. So thank you for your question, and both congratulations and I'm sorry for the anxiety that you feel, because anxiety can be very decentering for us. I have two things that I'll share, just from my own personal experience, but also I've, known you here at the Zen Center for a while, Shami. You've been around here before I am, so I know on a certain level you already sort of know inside how to trust yourself and how to come back to that when you're not missing it. So I don't think you need me, but I'd be happy to offer you some supporting words and share some of my experience, because you're a strong person. The first and the obvious thing is for me when I'm encountering it. And for those of you who don't know, I used to live in the Zen Center here for about 4 years, and I moved out back in November. When I moved out back in November, my regular practice started falling off quite a bit. And at the same time that I was falling off, I found I was encountering things similar to what you were. I had less of a center, I wasn't trusting myself as much, and I was filled with anxiety and depression and all sorts of other lovely mental conditions. Regular practice can be very helpful for that, I find. Yeah. And not just all things are practice, so I just need to give myself my mind over to that more informal practice. That's very good and that's very helpful as well. But at least for me, I find that I get the energy to do that when I do kind of more formal practice. That's one of the big things that kind of started bringing me back here, is I needed to kind of recharge my Dharma energy, and that happens when I do formal practice. So I don't know what your kind of practice is like these days, Shami. Okay. Yeah, well, you live in the perfect place. And then the second thing what comes out from that is just what I was describing before, is that place before our thinking, where we can go, oh, I'm experiencing anxiety and uncenteredness right now. How interesting. Watch that play out. Watch as it fades away. And that's that kind of practice mind outside of our formal situations, without trying to say, I shouldn't feel this way. Get rid of it. I'm doing so bad. Just, oh, this is happening right now. Come back to enjoying the fall trail. Or walking the fall trail with anxiety, maybe, not really enjoying it, sort of thing. And then see what the next moment brings. So, two things. Formal practice, recharge the Dharma energy, and then, bring that into our everyday life again. Oh, I feel uncentered right now. Okay, what's next? Moment after moment. Like I said, I know you know this, but I'm always happy to offer a supporting word. Does that help at all?
It's very helpful.
And that's time. Directly at 11:30, thank God. So thank you all so much for coming and practicing. And I'll turn it over to Eva for announcements.
Thank you, Josh and Diego. It's great to have the next generation of teachers up here. Just a few announcements. If Kongan interviews are part of your practice, we have online Kongan interviews this Tuesday night with Zen Master Tangong, Jose Ramirez. He is our co-guiding teacher. And also through the online Sangha, there are actually practice and teaching interviews pretty much throughout the week, morning and evening. You can find those online. Registration is open for a couple of retreats coming up. In November, we have a Christian Buddhist retreat, which is an interfaith retreat. Everyone is welcome. It is relatively similar to our one-day retreats, except that we are joined by I'm blocking out her name, but she is a Dominican nun who practices in the White Plum Zen tradition. In any case, you can find information about that online. And we also have our 7-day YMJJ retreat in December with Zen Master Song Hyang, who is the head of Quantum School of Zen. So that's a great opportunity to sit with her. Speaking of precepts, the next deadline for precepts is November 17th. If you are interested in that, you can talk to one of our co-guiding teachers or ask questions of anyone who is wearing this thing, which is called a casa. We also have, the holidays are coming up, and we have a couple of events on, I think it's November 17th. We have Zensgiving on Wednesday, which will be just a special dinner that's a potluck. And it's also our Volunteer Appreciation Day. So if you are a volunteer or if you're not, come and join us in giving thanks for this wonderful community. And on November 23rd, we will have a special Arts and Crafts Day where we make Zen-themed decorations for the Zensgiving tree, which is this tree that actually I think Villasenor built for us. And we're just going to be here in the Dharma room. Last but not least, the gift shop will be open and we will have refreshments outside. And I'll see you. Oh, actually, don't move yet. If you don't mind being in a photo, please stay where you are, because I would love to take a photo. And if either of you are...
Should we go over there?
You don't have to be in the photo, Diego. You're already on video anyway. All right, look enlightened. Even more enlightened. Give you a chance for your moment of enlightenment. Thank you very much.
Yeah.